Coming up on today's show, we're going to be talking about some of the older players on this Alabama roster going into this coming season. Alabama has a very veteran team going into next season. You know, it seems like they spent those NIL dollars to be able to keep some of those players that could have gone off to the NFL draft this year. They could have gone in to the transfer portal just like many other players did. Now, Alabama, next season, there's going to be a lot of roster turnover, it seems like, because 15 players this year will be out of eligibility after this coming season, and you also have 26 players that are underclassmen right now who could possibly enter the 2026 NFL draft after next season. Now, there's only about 10 of them who probably realistically have a shot to actually go off to the NFL draft, but coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about some of those older classmen for Alabama going into next season. Before we get into that, though, make sure you guys are subscribed right here to the Alabama Football Report. Going against our Ohio State channel, and they're kind of kicking our butts right now in the month of February, so help me out. Make sure you guys hit that sub button. Do not miss out on any Alabama football news rumors out there. Also going to be going to the NFL Combine this year, so do not miss any of that content either. Let's start off here at the running back position. You have Jam Miller and Dre'lyn Washington. Obviously, you got Dre'lyn Washington out of the transfer portal as well this past transfer portal cycle here. And look, these two guys been pretty decent in their career in college football. I think Jam Miller's progress might have got stunted a little bit last year with, Jalen Milroe taking, most of, I would say, the snaps there, rushing the ball. And then Dre'lyn Washington, we're just going to have to wait and see on kind of how they're going to utilize him next season, because I think what you have at that running back spot, including the guys that you already had coming in as freshmen as well, I think you like what you got with Jam Miller, guys like Richard Young as well, Daniel Hill, A.K. Deer coming in as well. You got a lot of guys there, Kevin Riley as well. Those guys were already here in the system, but I do think Dre'lyn Washington going into next season has a very good opportunity of playing a little bit this year. How much that's going to be, we're just going to have to wait and see. Going over to the tight end spot now here, we got Josh Cuevas, and he really is one of my favorite players that Alabama got out of the transfer portal when Nick Saban retired and Kalen DeBoer came over from Washington. I thought he was pretty solid this past season. 16 receptions you see there, over 200 yards as well receiving. And if you look at the actual receiving yards for the season this past year, he was like number 4 on your team in receiving yards, 218. That's probably not very good, but he is up there somebody that, when the ball is in his hands, he can make plays with the ball in his hands. And I like what you have in this tight end room as well. After Josh Cuevas ends up leaving as well, you got Danny Lewis Jr., Jay Lindsey. You got the 2 freshmen coming in here as well in Caleb Edwards and Marshall Pritchett. I think those guys are going to be very good in the pass-catching game as well. But, man, Josh Cuevas seriously is one of my favorite players on this team. It's a low-key kind of guy. He doesn't, do a ton, in terms of the pass-catching and whatnot. But he's also very, very good at blocking as well in the run game. I think Danny Lewis Jr. does a phenomenal job at that as well. And I do think Danny Lewis Jr. is another guy as well who I think they can utilize a little bit more in the pass game as well. So very excited about what Alabama has returning here at that tight end spot going into next season. But after next season, you're going to be losing Josh Cuevas. Let's go over here to the offensive line now. You got Jaeden Roberts, Geno VanDeMark, and Kam Dewberry that are going to be out of eligibility after next season. Kam Dewberry we got out of the transfer portal from Texas A&M, and I do think he is a prime candidate to start at that left guard position to replace Tyler Booker. There's definitely going to be competition there. I would not even rule out somebody like Geno VanDeMark over there at that left guard position as well. And I'll be completely honest, I'll, put my foot in my mouth. I gave a lot of crap to Geno VanDeMark. At the beginning of the season, he had to kind of shift in and out with Jaeden Roberts as he was kind of, battling injuries a lot throughout the season. But man, as the season progressed, I thought Geno VanDeMark did do a good job for Alabama, filling in that role at that right guard spot. Also played a little bit of center as well for Alabama. The run block grade there from PFF's a little bit low, but did very good in the pass block game as well. You look at Jaeden Roberts and Geno VanDeMark, they were kind of swapped when it comes to the run game and the pass game. But my hope is that Jaeden Roberts can be fully healthy throughout this entire season. He's a massive, massive human being, and I think he can be a very good player for Alabama next season. I think Geno VanDeMark can be a good player for Alabama next season. It's just going to, depend on how much Alabama's actually able to get him on the field. So let me know here at the pinned comment of today's video, guys. Who do you think will be the right guard for Alabama going into next season? Type JR if you think it's going to be Jaeden Roberts, or type GV if you think it's Geno VanDeMark. Personally, I think Jaeden Roberts is definitely going to be the starter for you, but like I said a second ago, I would not rule out Geno VanDeMark to win that left guard position as well. Let me know what you guys think at the pinned comment of today's video. Last year of eligibility here at the wide receiver spot, we're going to go with Germie Bernard. He's the only wide receiver right now who is going to be out of eligibility after next season. And, man, when you talk about Germie Bernard, he's one of those consistent guys, man. Him and Ryan Williams were really the only two wide receivers on this team last year who were actually consistent for you. And when, we talked about it the other day on our video the other day about that documentary right now that Fox Nation's coming out with about Alabama's season last year, first year under Kalen DeBoer. Man, Germie Bernard is one of those guys that was actually very accountable for Alabama in that wide receiver room. I think he's going to be a very good leader for you this year, and I'm excited to see what Germie Bernard can do, because I do think that going into next season, you have an opportunity to have at least two wide receivers with 1,000 yards. I think Ryan Williams and Germie Bernard, very good opportunity to go over 1,000 yards next year. You also have guys like Isaiah Horton coming in out of the transfer portal from Miami as well. So Alabama's wide receiver core next year, I think, is going to be very good. We'll see if that can actually translate to the field. Let's go over to defense now. We're going to start off here with the defensive line. You got Jah-Marien Latham, who's coming back for another season here with the Crimson Tide. He played mostly Bandit last year, but he also did kind of shift in a little bit at that Wolf position once Quandarius Robinson went down. And I think he did a pretty decent job there. And it sounds, Kane Womack a couple months ago talked about when Jah-Marien Latham decided he was going to come back. It does sound like he's going to be playing more of that Wolf position going into next season. LT Overton, Tim Keenan also going in to their last year of eligibility as well. I think LT Overton, he had a ton of pressures for Alabama last season, but wasn't necessarily always able to get home on the quarterback. I think that's, kind of an area where you could see him take a little bit of a step forward. I think Tim Keenan, in the run game, he's just absolutely dominant. I love guys like James Smith as well. I've said it before. I like what you have in terms of those starters on the defensive line. When you get to some of that depth, especially at the interior of the defensive line, that's when it starts getting a little scarce. I think that's why you see Alabama going out there and trying to go after anywhere from 3 to 5 defensive linemen in this 2026 recruiting class. So going into next season and after next season, Tim Keenan, LT Overton, Jah-Marien Latham all going to be out of eligibility. Make sure you guys are subscribed right here to the Alabama Football Report. I mentioned at the top of the show, Chat Sports is going to the NFL Combine this year, so we're going to have a lot of content coming out of that as well. Do not miss out. Make sure you guys hit that sub button for me right now. Let's go to the linebackers here now. Your 3 starting linebackers are all going to be out of eligibility after next season. Deontae Lawson, Justin Jefferson. You got Nikhai Hill-Green from Colorado out of the transfer portal as well. All 3 of these guys I think are going to be very, very good for Alabama, especially in the run game. We'll see, kind of how, they're able to cover in pass protection and things like that. But I do think especially in the run game, this linebacker core for Alabama next season is going to be very good. They've got a lot of, playing time under their belt. Deontae Lawson's been a starter for the past couple of seasons. Obviously, we're going to have to wait and see how he kind of bounces back from that injury. But, Deontae Lawson really, he's a team captain. He's one of those core guys on your team. Justin Jefferson, I really like what he brings to the table as well. And Nikhai Hill-Green, he's on his third team now, but man, he was very good for Colorado next season. And I do think that he is going to be very good for Alabama next season. You look at this linebacker room, it's really starting to fill out now with the additions from the transfer portal and that 2025 recruiting class as well. Once those guys go out, you got Caden Jones and QB Reese, I would assume are probably going to be two of the three starters there. Obviously there's going to be still, a battle at that linebacker position to decide really who gets the job. But I do think those guys are prime candidates at that middle linebacker position after those three guys go off to the NFL draft. And then we're just going to have to see, because Alabama got a lot of linebackers out of that 2025 recruiting class. You talk about guys like Luke Metz, Abdul Sanders. There's a lot of really good talent in this linebacker room. A lot of it's just young, though. So, in the future, you're just going to have to really hope that progress and the progression that these guys go through on a daily basis really, comes to fruition once they're able to hit the field. Because, like I said, there's a lot of young talent on this team after next season. Let's go here to the cornerback spot now here, I guess, /DB. Domani Jackson is your number one corner going into next season. DaShawn Jones kind of plays, a little bit all around. He played that Husky position a little bit last year for Alabama as well. When you talk about guys like Domani Jackson, man, I was just so impressed with what he was able to do for Alabama next season. I thought he definitely could have been a guy that I thought should have been looked at a little bit higher in terms of this 2025 draft class. I thought what he did for you last year was incredible. Just barely over 50% completion percentage on 50 targets his way. Had a couple of interceptions as well. Man, he was really locked down for Alabama. I think he also only had like 3 penalties this season as well for you. So, Domani Jackson, if he can continue just to progress and take another stride, man, I definitely think Domani Jackson is going to be a guy that, has first-round buzz going into next season and even after next season as well. And then DaShawn Jones, he's got a couple of years left this is also his last year of eligibility. That's my bad. But whether or not he plays a lot next season, not really sure on that. I think he's kind of going to be in that same position that he was this year. You got a lot of talent in that DB room right now, especially some of those young guys coming out of high school as well. Talk about guys like Dejoun Lee. We'll see how soon he's able to get on the field. But DaShawn Jones is definitely one of those guys that is on your bench right now, but he definitely does play a pivotal role, especially if somebody goes down with an injury or has to come off the field or something like that. I think DaShawn Jones can hold it down good enough. You also have, in total about 26 draft eligible underclassmen, but I threw these guys up there because I think they're the most realistic underclassmen that could have a good season this year and go off to the NFL draft. I think Ty Simpson, we'll see on him. Obviously, you only got 3 quarterbacks on the roster right now, but you don't want to have a backlog at that quarterback position either, going into the future. Isaiah Horton, I mentioned him earlier. I think he's a prime candidate to go off this season for Alabama's wide receiver room. I think Parker Brailsford and Caden Proctor, as long as they play as well as they did this season, they're going to be gone off to the NFL draft. Cavante Henry, he came into this 2025 class, but he is in his third year, I believe, or going into his 4th year now of college football. Started off at Oklahoma, played a couple of seasons in JUCO, and now is at Alabama. I wonder with him how that JUCO ruling, getting those extra years and things like that, really affects his eligibility. I'm not quite sure on that, but he's going to have a couple more years as well. Keon Sabb, Bray Hubbard, 2 incredible safeties for you this past season. Obviously, Keon Sabb got injured, about halfway through the season. But, man, Bray Hubbard was able to go in and really step up. I don't necessarily think those guys are, maybe they have phenomenal seasons in their draft, can improve their draft grade. But I think those guys are probably prime suspects to stay James Smith, Quay Russaw, those guys, you saw the flashes from them this year. I think if they have incredible seasons this year, they could be they could go off to the NFL draft. And Danny Lewis Jr. as well. Like I said, I think he can be utilized more in that pass game, but he does a phenomenal job run blocking. And all these guys, really, if they have incredible years this year, every single one of these guys could have an opportunity to improve their 2026 NFL draft stock.